This live martial arts class, you'll discover how to make your own Joe staff and how to train with the Joe staff. This is one of the best martial arts weapons for street fight self-defense that I know of. It's one of my favorite weapons of all time. It's a shorter version of that long Japanese Joe, or the long Japanese bow, which is the long staff. It's just a little bit higher than you are, about the same height. This one comes up to about your armpit, maybe a little bit shorter, and it goes anywhere. I see a guy walk in the neighborhood in the mornings and he's carrying this stick. He's carrying a Joe. And I don't know if he knows how to use it, if he's trained with it, he probably has, but he carries it every morning, an older gentleman, and you can carry it this way, you can use it like the walking stick, and it very quickly becomes a weapon that you can put between you and the threat, a self-defense tool. And then you can strike with it this way, you can strike with it down, almost like it were a sword. The hands can be apart, the hands can come together. These are both Joe strikes. It can switch from one hand to the next. You can do the jabbing motion, all of the things that you've always done or that you can do with the longer staff, the bow staff, you can also do with the Joe. The greatest thing about the Joe is that you can train with it inside and you're not gonna have to worry about your ceiling height. You can do spins, one hand and the other one, to work on your dexterity and your hand strength, your flexibility, your grip power, grip strength. You can practice all of your striking motions with the Joe. It's really effective for street fight self-defense though. Same basic principles apply. You put your thumb at the threat, you have this immediate force multiplier, so however strong you are, now you put that into this piece of wood, this stick, and you can stop somebody from getting closer. You can quickly strike. There's so many different things you can do with this that you can't even do with that really long staff. The long staff is great. It has its own language almost, but this has its own language too. This is a derivative. This comes from that Japanese bow, but the Joe, and it just like bow staff means staff, the Joe also means staff. It's just a shorter version. Now, I wanted to show you how you can make your own, get started, practice with it immediately, starting less than $5 is what I paid for this one. Let me show you the other one that I bought from a martial arts company and had it shipped to me. Now it's a little bit taller. It's not technically a Joe. This is their shorter version of the staff. This is actually closer. The one I got at the hardware store is closer to the size I like to use if I'm gonna walk with it. I'm gonna walk outside either as a walking stick or if I'm just gonna carry it this way. A lot of Japanese policemen for a long time in Tokyo carried the Joe. It became a very useful tool. They'd carry it this way or they could carry it as a walking stick. And then very immediately it becomes a defensive tool creating that distance. I want to show you this one. This is the heavier one that I got from Century Martial Arts. With shipping, this cost me my price, which means I have a wholesale account because I'm a martial arts school for 30 years. This cost me, with shipping, almost 28 bucks. And it's heavy. It's that wood that comes from, probably this one came from China, that hard oak, red oak. It's a little heavy. It's a younger oak. It feels good. I like the feel of it. It's a thicker weight, but this is not what you would see with a lot of Joe schools, whether it's Aikido, like a school that just teaches the Joe. And that's where I learned. I first went to a school that just taught the Joe staff in Cincinnati. A lot of Aikido schools also teach the Joe as a training weapon and as a self-defense tool that supplements the Aikido. They teach it along with the bokken. And then one person will practice with the bokken, the sword. I got one of those too because I'm going to show you how to use the bokken. This is one of my favorite tools of all time. Spent hours and hours and hours with the Japanese sword. But then the other weapon that you would use to practice self-defense against that sword, the Japanese sword, would be your Japanese bow. But this one that I spent between $25 and $28 if I look at the shipping cost. And it's a little bit thicker than I like. And I could buy a really nice one. I know there's some people on Etsy that make them and sell them, and it would be super durable. The one that I have that's stuck in Ohio, that Kellen, if you're seeing this, please send it to me. Yeah, definitely. The greatest thing about the Joe, even more than the bow, is that both hands on this weapon become extremely important. Learning how to go from one side to the other side, striking here, and it's an extremely versatile weapon. I don't know if you've heard this story, but the story was that Musashi fought the monk, and the monk, who was this brilliant fighter with the bow, was defeated by the famous swordsman, 100, 200 years ago or whatever. And the biggest problem with his bow, that Japanese long staff, was that it kept getting stuck in the trees, and he wasn't able to do all of the techniques that he needed to do to defeat the swordsman. So he went away and meditated on it and trained and sweat, blood, sweat, and tears, right? And realized the length was a problem, and he cut it, and it became the Joe. And he created a new system of fighting against the sword using the Joe, using the shorter staff. And then when he fought against the swordsman again, he was able to defeat him because he wasn't restricted by the trees. He wasn't stuck there, right? Because his staff wasn't so long, it wasn't getting caught up in stuff. And so that's how supposedly, that's the story of how the shorter staff was born. This Joe staff became a very effective weapon. And then it was not just a story, it's a true story that the policemen in Tokyo started carrying the Joe after being taught how to use the Joe for self-defense, especially if the bad guy had a knife. And at that time, the police officers didn't always have a gun, or they didn't want to, I'll show you how to do that today. Didn't want to use the gun to shoot somebody with a knife. Seemed like overkill, pun intended. So they have this is longer than a knife. There's this strike, right? There's this strike, both sides. That's the great thing about this shorter weapon. There's the reverse, this side coming through, striking this way. There's the changing of the hands over the head, and it just becomes much more effective. So police officers carry this for a long time. What I was showing you was this is the one that I bought from the martial arts supply company. This is the one that I bought from Lowe's Hardware, the local hardware store. And I'll show you the sticker here. This is how you make your own. You make your own weapons. I like to, especially at the beginning, when you first get into a style of a weapon, if you can make your own, not only do you have a stronger connection to the weapon, right? But you're also going to learn more about the weapon and how it moves and how you can make it move. And you have something to practice with that doesn't cost a lot of money. And then if you do spend a lot of time getting really good using that weapon that you've made, then you will easily invest in buying something that costs a lot more money or a little bit more money that's going to maybe last longer. But in the meantime, you get to take a trial run. You get to get used to it. You get to get a feel for it. And if you get the right material, you might just want to stick with this one forever. You'll always have a weapon that you can use to practice, bang it up, takes a beating, and then you get your nice fancy weapon that you take to the school or to a demonstration and you show everybody, but you always have that one that you made. And I want you to make it this way if you're interested. So I went to Lowe's. I had to get a new toilet seat yesterday because the other toilet seat got broken. It's called a dowel rod, and it's the same material that they use for a curtain rod or closet rod if it's wood. And this one is made of poplar, and it says right here, let me see if you can see that. Yeah, Dowel, you're right, D-O-W-E-L. Try to get it in focus there. And it says it right on there. 1 inch, you probably can't see it, 1 inch by 48 inches, 1 inch, 48 inches, 40 inches, that's how tall, 1 inch. That's what it is around. And that's what that red is. In a hardware store, they're color coded, so you know what you're getting. 48 inches. This one is poplar. That's the kind of wood that it is, which means it's not oak. It's not as hard and as strong as oak, but I couldn't find oak. The only oak I found was 36 inches, and that's not long enough. But oak, when you pick it up, it's heavier, and you can feel it's more sturdy. This is popular, and it's not as sturdy, but it's more sturdy, and it's a better piece of wood than the one that I made the last video. The last video where I was showing you how to make your own Joe cost more. It was $10 almost, and it was a one of those screw tips, and it was longer, and what I did was I cut off the tip. First, what I did was I removed the tip, and then later I cut it to make it shorter. But the wood, and it was a piece of wood, it said on it, made in China, and I think it probably sat in a warehouse for a long time, and it was dried out, and it had a finish on it, and I had to sand and sand to get the finish off to try to get my oil in it, and I'll show you the oil in a second. This has no finish. It's just a basic dowel rod. It's very strong. It feels like a younger piece of wood, which means that it has more moisture in it. It probably is kiln dried, so that means it's going to be a little bit stronger, but it still has some of that youthful moisture in it. Now, if you get, the first thing that you want to get with your dowel, this cost me $4.88, $4.88, so less than $5. I'll put a link if you want to get one from Amazon. You'll pay for shipping, but you'll still be under $10. And it's a hardwood dowel, 1 inch by 48 inches. That's what you want. Now this one, when you feel it, it's just a little rough, just a tiny bit. So I don't need very coarse sandpaper. I use these sanding blocks because the other thing that I do is paint. I paint all the time. I grew up painting. That was my first trade. If I ever have to go back to a trade, if this doesn't work out and the Wuhan takes all my business away, and when you stay shut for another month, I might be doing a lot of painting. But when you sand the wall, if you patch the hole, the stores sell these blocks. And the great thing about these blocks are there's sandpaper on all these sides. And then when it gets like that, where there's, gets gunked up, you just rinse it. It's like a sponge. And then that cleans it off. And these are durable. You use them over and over and over again. And this one I also have a painting contractor's discount, because I've had a painting company in addition to a martial arts company that since I was 18 years old, right? And then when my father passed, I took his discount. So I have that paint. Yeah, so you get the paint, this comes from a paint store. You can get these as cheap as $1 sometimes on sale. Sometimes they're $2 or $3, but they last forever as long as you take care of it. You rinse it off, squeeze it out. But this is fine meaning that there are more pieces of sand, more grains of sand per inch. And what that'll do, you turn it while you're rubbing it, right? Just up and down, up and down. And the same thing works if you have a piece of sandpaper, you just put it around, you're going around, and I can already feel it's taken off a lot of the little rough edges. There's a little piece right there. Oh, and I'll take that off. I'll probably take this off with, they're made not to be peeled off so that they stay on in the store, right? This one also says, it's made in Madison, Wisconsin. This is from a poplar tree in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Ohio, a couple states over. I know what those trees look like. But anyway, this will come off with just a little bit. I'll take a little knife and I'll peel it, and there'll be a little gooey stickiness there. And I'll put a little dish soap, Dove dish soap, and I'll put that on there and I'll rub it around. Then I'll take a microfiber cloth like this, or any cloth, right? Don't overthink it. You don't have to have any fancy stuff. You want to keep this whole project under $10. And then you just rub that really hard, for a while. Let it sit there and it'll come right off. If you have like Goo Gone or Goof Off, yeah, not a bow staff, but a Joe. This is the Joe. And yes, we're smoothing this staff using the sandpaper. I'll use 2 because I have them, right? If you only have 1 sandpaper, just use 1. Bring this all off, and then on the edges, I want to show you the edges. Right here, I already did that edge. Here it is. That's the one they paint in the store, so they color code it. This is 48 inches, by the way. 48 inches, and it's 1 inch in diameter, and it's a very effective self-defense tool. You can use it to strike, you can use it to block, you can use it with 1 hand or 2 hands. And the figure 8, just going side to side. You can do all the same spins, and it's not as tall, so it's not gonna hit the ceiling. So smoothness is very important, but it's not everything. Your hand is gonna smooth it down, but you don't wanna get any splinters in your hand. I don't anyway. I will, there's one right there. But not from this one. So when you get to this end, that's gonna be a little rougher where they cut it. Just straight on first, right? Then you wanna put a bevel. A bevel is like a little, an angle. And you just go to the side like that, a bevel. All the way around. And you want that bevel because the way you use the Joe is a little bit different than the way you use the bow. And I'm gonna show you that. This bevel, this is the extra fine. So that means more grits of sand per inch. I'm just gonna keep going around. And I'll probably do this a little bit more when I'm done. Yes, after the lockdown, unless you can have somebody, you know what, a lot of your neighbors, I don't know if you live with a lot of people, but somebody's got one of these, somewhere. Either a block or they've got a piece of sandpaper, and you can say, hey, can I borrow your sandpaper? All right, so I put a little bevel, and it just has to be a tiny bit, because I'm gonna hold one hand on each side, and this hand is gonna slide in, and this hand's gonna slide in, and I'm gonna turn. Slide this one out, slide this one out. And then I want to practice. This is proprioception. I wanna get a good feel for how this works, because the beauty of the shorter staff, the Joe, is I'm gonna hit you here, and I'm gonna hit you here, and I'm gonna constantly be changing my grip like this. The oil comes next. We're gonna do the oil just here in a second. But that little bevel on the end allows you to go from here, whoop, gotta get a feel for it again, to here without your hand getting caught up on the end. The other way you use this is almost like a pull cue. There's a lot of this strike, strike, strike. But there's also coming over your head. Your hands are apart like they would be on a sword, or your hands come together like you would be on a baseball bat. Two different kinds of strikes, sliding down. And the reason it has to be so smooth is you're pushing with the front hand. The back hand carries the weight, but this front hand pushing accelerates, making it harder and faster. And you would strike like this. This is how you practice. This is also really good for your shoulders and your alignment. 1, 2. This is one of those meditative weapons that I like to use when I need to de-stress. Picking up a lot of the sand, debris. We're gonna take care of that here with our oil. So I'm practicing 1. This is a blocking or deflecting motion. I'm turning and pulling, creating an arc. You're welcome. Thank you for watching. Blocking here, striking. See how my hand slides, sliding? It's not just sliding down, it's also pushing as it's sliding and hitting hard. Yes, this is short staff. This is the spin, but you want to think about if you're walking like a walking stick, the threat starts to come and reveal itself. You point your thumb at the threat, just like you would with the longer staff. And then striking. From here, pushing and turning into the target. Striking this way, striking this way. And it all comes from this ability for your hands to slide past each other. My email address is my last name, Pasquinelli, Pasquinilli, @hotmail.com. I also have, I think, Gmail too. But it's my last name at Hotmail or Gmail, whichever one you want to swing. Yes, the backhand is twisting. Here's what you have to know about martial arts, traditional martial arts. If I'm doing a downward block with my fist in my forearm, down here or down here, and someone's hitting me, like maybe they're trying to grab or punch or stab, I twist my hand so that on the moment of impact, if I just come straight in like this with no twist, I'm gonna break this bone. It's a small bone. Say it's their shin, maybe they're roundhouse kicking me, or maybe they've got a bat or some kind of tool or weapon, or maybe they just have a big arm, a strong arm, and I just come straight down. This can break very easily because all of that force from here to here goes into that bone. When I twist, now I'm deflecting the energy and I'm redirecting it through the arm, through the elbow, the joint, through the shoulder. And if I have a good proper stance, that's why stances are so important in traditional martial arts. It goes all the way through my body into the earth, into the ground. That's what the stances are all about. Same is true for that upper block. If I block like this, not only can you see the top of my head, right? This is just gonna break. I have to turn the whole way up and push out at the same time. And then it hits here and it slides, but also all that energy in a spiraling motion goes through my arm, through the elbow, through the upper arm, through the shoulder, into my spine, down through my legs, and into the earth. Ideally, if you have good stances, that's what it's about. Now, the same is true with your weapon. If you have the katana, the Japanese sword, all of the strikes are really arcs, slicing motion, for two reasons. One, because when you go into muscle and tissue, it's gonna pull and create a vacuum, and it's gonna hold that knife or that sword in there. It's not gonna wanna let it go. That's why you see a blood groove in fighting knives. If I had my K-bar, I'd show you. It's over there somewhere. It's in my bug out bag in the back of the car. Or get home bag, whatever you wanna call it. But also that shape is designed. And then a swordsman knows to twist. And when you twist, yeah, of course, use your long staff. When you twist with a knife or a sword, you open or break that, the vacuum. And then the blood runs out, and then you can pull your knife out. But you have to have that arcing motion. The other reason is if you just come straight down like this, all the force is here, and on that point, it can break. If you come down with that slicing motion, which really is a spiraling motion, if you were to look at it in a bigger picture, because it's coming from the shoulder joint, but it's a spiraling motion, so that when you hit, that energy is redirected out of both sides. And the swordsman, it goes through his hands, his wrists, his elbows, his shoulder, into the ground. And the same is true with the staff. If I just push straight in, I can create force. If I push and turn, not only do I create more force because of the extra turn, I'm exponentially increasing my power, but I also, when I hit and the energy comes back at me, I'm able to absorb and then it goes through all of the joints, proper stance, into the floor. That's traditional martial arts. That permeates all of especially Japanese style weapons are all turning. They all have this spiraling motion. If you're coming down at me with your sword to slice me in the middle, and I bring my sword up, or in this case my Joe, that is a deflecting, that's a move with the Joe. Yes, torque, the perfect, I always forget that word. This is creating, see that? I turn and down, that's the spiraling motion. Now, the sword's coming here, I knock it out of the way so it no longer cuts me in the middle. But if I just come up, straight in, puts all of it, all the energy from his blow, and from my deflection into this part of the weapon. Now, if my stick is weak at all, it breaks right there. Or even if it's a strong stick, but I just go super, super hard, boom, right? My adrenaline's pumping, his adrenaline, bam, or hers, smash, it's broken. If I spiral, it goes through my hands, my wrists, through the staff, into my boom, and then I live to fight another strike and another strike and another strike. That's why spiraling is so important, And that's where all of this spinning comes in. And learning how to move, that also teaches your hands how to do, this slicing motion. And then the spiraling motion on the strikes. And then of course, like I said before, you have to be able to do this. Even if it's made out of, especially if it's made out of metal. A lot of metal, now the old Japanese swordsmiths and the new Japanese swordsmiths who know what they're doing because they pass it down generation to generation, they fold that metal. It becomes very strong and flexible, right? So it's able to take that, but only so many hits. But every time, if you were to fight sword against sword in the movies, especially, because in real life it wouldn't happen that way, but sword against sword, you would need that turning or your metal is gonna bend and at some point it'll break. Yes, all punches. And again, it's those two reasons. It's one, to generate more power, extra power, but two, so that when you hit, it's coming through and you have perfect posture and good stance, and it goes into the earth. It comes from the earth when I hit you, and then it goes back to the earth when I get that resistance. The spiral is extremely important. If you just push like this, you can't generate even 1/3 of the power just pushing this way. Even a box, boxers turn their punches over too. Boxers have that same turn. It just doesn't start here, and it's not just the two first knuckles. A boxer punch is a little bit different. It won't break, it will bend. And if it bends enough, it'll have a point, it gets too hot, it breaks. I saw a Chinese Kung Fu, they were supposed to be Shaolin monks. They were performers. They were mostly wushu guys pretending to be Shaolin monks. One of the things that they did at this traveling wushu Shaolin monk thing was the guy took a piece of plate metal, and cracked it over his head, busted it over his head. And the audience was, whoa. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, metal doesn't break, it bends, unless it's overheated. This is what if you've ever worked in a foundry, and I haven't except for cleaning up, but people who work in a foundry know if you overheat metal, it becomes brittle and it breaks like glass. And what they did, because most of those things are tricks or it's using principles of physics, like I like to break rocks, coconuts, that's a new one I just started breaking, coconuts, I'll show you how to do that. Bricks, like paver bricks, but there's a technique to all of it. There's no mysticism, there's no magic involved, none. And you do have to have a stronger hand, and my hand is extremely strong because I properly prepared it. But it's all about proper technique, and there's a physical or mechanical property involved that you have to know when you do it. That doesn't mean it's gonna break. You still have to hit it extremely hard. No, again, like I have the metal staves, if it's too hard, or if it's very strong, it might be too heavy. And then it's slow. Heavy is too slow. If it's too light, like the one I have that's aluminum, it's great for demonstrations, and it's pretty and it's cool. It looks really cool, but it bends all over the place and it gets dented and dinged. I've had the same wooden staff made out of oak that's in the corner of the bow staff, and then my Joe, which is the same material, and I have a Boken, all same material, white oak, same factory. They don't make them anymore. A guy handmade them in Boulder, Colorado years ago, and I beat those things to a pulp, but they didn't break because my technique was correct. Metal, it all depends on what it is and how you use it. If you use it properly, you're not gonna break it. I don't care what it is. But like I have the one in the corner over here that's made out of carbon fiber, and it's made to be extremely fast and wickedly light. And you can do all kinds of tricks with it that you can't do with another staff. But if I hit it against one of these bags, especially like this bag over here, it's gonna shatter. It'll break very easily. They used to make them out of graphite, which was similar. The same thing would happen, they would break. I have one that's made out of a really, really dense hard plastic, it'll never break. I don't care how hard you hit it against stuff. That thing is indestructible, but it's so heavy that it moves extremely slowly. I wouldn't want to use it for self-defense. I want to use the perfect weapon. And this, the one that I got at the store that you can get for less than 10 bucks, a little bit of sandpaper, make it smooth, you have a great training weapon, and then later, if you need to use it, while we're all still in this weird world of the virus and everybody's getting a little crazy, and people, when they're stressed, some handle it really well, some don't. And maybe you have to, wherever you live, walk. You can use this. Just looks like you're using a walking stick. And somebody might think, boy, he's a little dorky, or she's a little weird for using a walking stick. But who cares what other people think? And I'm not just saying that as a cliche. Who cares? You don't know what they're thinking. That's number one. You're probably wrong. They probably don't care what you look like. Number two, if they do, what a loser. How could they possibly have time to worry about you and what you're doing? Good, you'll love it. You'll love that cane. I only have, this is all I have left, because when I patch the walls from painting, I put it on really thin. I don't need a heavy grit. If I put a heavy grit on what I use, then it'll pull off all of that I put on. So I use just fine sandpaper. I use fine and extra fine. That's all I have here. So I did fine first, and I took all the burrs off. It's just nice and smooth. And then I did extra fine. I can feel there's still a little bit right there. I'll do that again when we're done. And I'll do the extra fine for a good 30 seconds, down and back. And then that's all I really need. And then, where is it? Here we go. You have many options when it comes to oil. The best, by far, is going to be the oil in your hand getting into your staff. From use, from spinning, from practicing, from striking, from spending 30 minutes a day practicing, you're going to get so much oil from your hand into there. Except, right now, we're all washing our hands all the time. Wash your hands, sing some goofy song, and put it on TikTok, right? And you wash it, and then there's no oil left on your hands. So you might not have enough oil in your hands. So the second best is going to be linseed oil, and I used boiled linseed oil because it doesn't go rancid. And rancid is when it rots and stinks. Now that's never happened to me, even though I've used every kind of oil. Vegetable oil, coconut oil, they all work. You're just feeding the wood. Feeding the wood. There's no finish on this. There's no lacquer. There's no paint. I'm just feeding that wood. The oil from my hand, the most. And then every few days, at the beginning, right after you get your stick, at the beginning, I always forget you need to pop this thing open. See if I can do it with my thumb. I might not be able to with my thumb. They always have, this is smart too. They have these things, you put a little screwdriver in there and pop it open. And oh, you know what I learned for a long time ago? I've been doing this forever now. I use this watch. I have this beefy Sunto watch that has the GPS on it, tells me where I am. I can dive, I can go out of an airplane. Found these in the military. They used to issue you these, but then when you get out, you gotta buy your own. Anyway, so you pop that open. See the usefulness of your watch? You have to improvise, overcome. That's the Marine Corps part of me. You never get rid of that. That's good, right? They beat you. They used to. I don't think they do anymore, not as much. You don't forget that either. It wasn't that bad. It made me mentally strong. You need to be mentally strong, right? All right, anyway, boiled linseed oil doesn't go rancid. You can also use mineral oil. Yeah, some of you know what I'm talking about. Mineral oil, coconut oil. I used to use coconut oil all the time because for a while we were all getting really healthy there, and I had coconut oil everywhere, and I was slathering it on my hands, trying to get rid of the cracks and on my heels. Doesn't work so well for that. But it doesn't go rancid. So I put just a little bit there, and that's all you need. And then you put it down one side. And after you do this, you can still sand it. I wouldn't sand it right away, but I'll use this for a couple days, and I might do a little bit more sanding. Get rid of that sticker. I think I showed you. There it is. It says 1x48 poplar dowel, saving the tropical rainforest. Genuine USA poplar renewable resource. That's how we save all that stuff. All right, so you bring that through. Now it's nice and oiled. It'll move even faster, smoother, but most importantly, the oil is now getting in the fibers and it's starting to feed the wood again, and now it becomes more durable. That means when I hit things, it's not as likely to break. And that's what you have to do with your wooden weapons, is you have to keep them oiled if they are nude like this, if they don't have any finish on them. Now, for less than $5, I got this at Lowe's. Home Depot has them, Ace Hardware if you're in this country. But I know wherever you are, you're gonna find wooden dowels, hardware stores, and they should be inexpensive, or I put the link in there if you wanna just have it ordered. If you can't wait till they lift this thing, order some sandpaper from Amazon, order a dowel, and you should have some kind of oil. Don't be afraid to use vegetable oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil. Think about what they are. They all come from plants, right? And you're just putting plant oil back into this. That's all that needs. That's what it wants. So now it's very strong. It's very durable. Not all of them. That I have two weapons that chop up my hands. One is the aluminum staff because it has a diamond pattern on it. And when I got it, I think they made it like really fast and got it to me so I can make some videos to try to help them, even though they don't give me any money. Because it made my hands black. I mean, there was a lot of metal dust on it, right? And it cuts little cuts on my hands, just little ones, because I have thick skin, right? But the other one is that lightsaber I got from Altar Sabers. It's machined aluminum too, and that thing has these weird little holes in it to make it look fancy or something. I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars aficionado. It's just that the lightsaber is the same as the Japanese sword for the most part. And people ask me all the time, well, how do you do the obi spin, right? The obi, and then it comes behind your back and you're spinning it like that. And I say, well, that's exactly the same as the blossom from the Dao or the Mulan sword. I got one of those over there for you too. And it's the same thing, right? But it's the same kind of stuff. That other thing, metal, this is my point. It might be smooth, but it's just chopping me up. Broom handle, that's fine. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I'm just saying that if you want a fun project, it's this thing. So we go back to create some distance. This first strike, just like that sliding pull cue. The second strike just comes down, right? Super simple, get right to the point. Back up, I'll defend myself, bam, just bust them in the face. Bring it to the other side, same thing. Same from here to here. Just practice those strikes to defend yourself. From here on the ground, turn your hand up and bring this down on top of their head. And I normally wouldn't say use a spin to hit somebody, but this is so effective. And I've been hit by this one. It just pops here and it comes down, here and down. And this is the beginning of that figure eight. Now you can practice doing the figure eight. Make sure your hand stays closed. Don't do this. That'll feel better, but it's cheating, and it'll give you less control. Practice this way, and that's just that figure eight. When you did your bow staff, your figure eight was like this. And this isn't going to spin as fast in the middle as the bow because you don't have as much weight and momentum. So the way you spin this one is from this position, you pop it up and you spin it this way. And then to practice, go through the thumb and the first finger, and then it goes here. And then you have it in your hand the same way you would a collie stick or a short sword. Think of a machete, or think of one hand on a katana, or if it suits your fancy, think of a lightsaber. But you're just practicing from here, spinning. You can make this your warm-up, and then force yourself to get comfortable, letting it go between the first two fingers, and then complete the spin. Grab it with the thumb, pull that first finger out of there, and you have a good grip here and fighting here. and then take it back into here, and then into here. And it's the same thing. Maybe you like that Ahsoka Tano, and she fights, she's got one sword up and one sword down, and she's chopping this way and like this. That's how she goes from this position to that position. That's all that is just a one finger roll. Now, if I were to take it in the middle and I start rolling it like this, that's a finger roll. That's a continuous finger roll. You can do that. If I bring it through the first three fingers, or the last three fingers, and then I pop the first three here, the oil just popped me on the floor. From here, I go over the back of those three fingers, and I'm gonna grab it with that thumb. That's a 3-finger roll. And you might use that if you're doing your bow staff over to here, and then you might add that wrist roll into the finger roll. But when you're doing this, slicing down, defending yourself, and then you go back into this reverse grip. Now, from here, you point your thumb, you've got this one. You also have this block up over your head, which is very effective. From here, I can switch hands and strike on the other side. And you'll see a lot of times this fancy move, but all you're really doing is you're taking your hands and you're opening them and sliding them past each other. That's all that is. And so you can practice that here in a small way, but then I want you to move it out to the ends. Practice it all the way to one side and then back the other way. And I'm not balanced yet in the middle. With a new piece of wood, you'll find the balance with practice. Probably take me a week or so, maybe less, I don't know. With this one, you just practice going one way and then the other way. But the idea is that you want to get a feel for it so that when you start to defend yourself and fight with this weapon, you don't ever lose the grip. You always keep your hands on it so that you can always knock somebody back and keep them off, right? But that's why this is such a versatile weapon, because of the length. It's long enough to create distance between me and the threat, and it's short enough that I'm not going to get hung up by, well, that was the other staff. I'm not going to get hung up by anything in the room. I can be on the bus, I can be on the train, I can be in the apartment, I can be in my house, and I can use this. I'm not going to run into the ceiling. When you do this downward strike, practicing from here, one hand's on each side, one hand comes here, the other hand comes here. You're pushing your hand forward as it slides down, two directions, forward and sliding at the same time. That's going to increase the speed that this comes down, making it an extremely fast and hard strike, bringing it down here and here. So you can practice. You have 30 minutes to spend on your short staff. Just practice here. See what I'm doing? This is all I'm doing. I just did that like I did before. And then just make sure it's in the center line. This is a strike. You can bring it from the side, but understand this is a different strike. This is correct, and this is correct. This is correct for a centerline strike. This is correct for that angular strike. They're both correct, which means that this strike coming up, this can be that deflection, that blocking motion. See the turn of my wrists? This can be that turn, or it can be an upward strike coming off the ground. The nice thing about this is I can bring it up here and I can push it back. I can bring my other hand from here and stepping back the other way. And then I bring it up here. You'll see all these. There are a million ways to fight with the Joe. And it's one of those weapons that is so classy and there's so much finesse that goes into it, so many small motions that you can teach yourself and learn. That's why you can do 30 minutes every day and you won't get bored of it, because you'll get better and better. And it really becomes an extension, not just of your hands, but of like your spirit and your soul, because it becomes moving meditation. You can start to move in different directions. It'll help you with your footwork and your balance. You can do all the different ski. This is called a ski, which is like just like a spear, right? I'm going here, and I turn here, my hands slide here. I can do this, practicing this motion. I can go to the side, and then you can take a tennis ball, poke holes in it, feed some string through that thing. You want to feed the string through it, because if you just wrap it like I kept trying, it'll go flying. You can also use a sock with a tennis ball in it. I think that's too easy. Take the tennis ball, get the string through it, tie the knot, hang it from a tree outside or from the rafters or the ceiling inside, and then practice your accuracy. Practice hitting that thing, hitting it, and then let it swing, and then practice hitting it while it's in motion. And that way, because you're not going to hit a standing bag, you're not going to hit a stack of tires. You're going to hit somebody who's coming at you, or someone's trying to stab you with a knife or punch you in the face, and you're going to hit that hand and knock that knife right out of their hand and bust them in the face, and then hit their friend here and the other guy over here as you fight. But this is the basic idea. $5, less than $5, less than a penny's worth of oil, and don't go buy, you don't need a big can. I just have it because I've had it forever, right? Any kind of rag. If you don't have a rag, use toilet paper. Or if you don't have any toilet paper, use a paper towel or something. But get some oil on it, sand it every once in a while, and then, yeah, it is, but don't overthink it. Think of it this way. You start here, right, with the seed of the idea. The seed of the idea is a stick for self-defense. The seed of the idea is that your stick is longer than his arm. So you have advantage by having reach. The seed of the idea is that you have a weapon in your hand compared to nothing when he pulls out a knife. So start with the seed. The first seed is point your thumb, create some distance. There are many techniques. And then you grow. It comes out of the ground. The seed then becomes the spinning and the turning into a different position and then turning back, and then all of the other things that you can do with spinning, and then it grows into a bigger plant, and then you have different strikes, blocks and strikes, and it continues to grow. That seed gets bigger and bigger, and you have hello Slick Vic, and then you have all these different footwork and moving and fancy things, and then you learn how to use it to create joint locks and pressure points. One of the best things about this is if I have this here and I hit him and he goes like this and holds the other end, I can now use that to put him on the ground or twist him, and I can do it forcefully enough that it's gonna flip him and throw him. And sometimes when you see that in demonstrations where guys go flying, that's because they're making it look good, but it really will. If I hit you and you grab hold of it like this or like this, and I know what I'm doing and I move fast enough, I'm going to smash you into the floor. And if I do it forcefully enough with a step or a little move of my body, you're probably gonna flip and you're gonna turn. If not, you're gonna end up breaking something or pulling a tendon out of a socket or something like that. But there's a lot of things that you can do. That's later. That's as the seed grows. What I want you to do from the start is get the weapon, get the stick, get the dowel rod, sand it, oil it, and then start by one technique. This ski motion, this turning and striking. And then another technique. You know, the guy comes in, just hit him. And then the other side, and the other side. And then build on each technique. Watch these videos, watch the other videos and other people make, and then learn and grow your knowledge, right? The roots go deeper, the plant gets taller, the branches go out, the leaves come out, the fruit or the nut starts to grow on the tree, and you get that delicious orange like you get down here, where you get, you know, maybe your flavor is like a tart lemon, but whatever it is, doesn't matter. Or maybe you like olives. Maybe you're a savory kind of person. But that it'll take your own flavor. That's the beautiful thing about martial arts, is that once you get it going, it's going to continue to grow with more effort and more care and more love. I'll take a look at it. But get something and get started. The point is, plant your seed and water it, right? Right now, the world is crazy, and there's an opportunity for you to complain and worry and say, when is my check gonna come? When are they gonna send me my bailout money? And that's, that just exposes you bare to the world. And that shows everybody who'll listen to you whine, and everybody's whining at the same time, all of your needs, right? I need this, I'm not gonna survive, I need that. When's this gonna happen? Think of it like this. You've been dropped in the middle of the woods or the forest, and after a while you realize no one's coming to save you. You're either gonna walk out, make a fire, look for something to eat, find something to collect some water, but that's where you should be. You should be in that mindset, okay, even if someone is coming looking for me, I'm not gonna wait. I'm gonna start moving. I'm gonna look around me, see what I can gather. That's being prepared. That's the martial arts mind, right? The other half of that is, or the other way to think about that is, showing your need, like most everybody around you is doing. All the complaints, all the whininess, all of the fear, so much anxiety about what might happen. Or you plant your seed. Either show your need or plant your seed. This is a seed. You get this? You start moving with it. Planting your seed, something's gonna grow because you've taken some action. Just showing your need, everybody's doing that, nothing happens, but you just gain and you. Nice, excellent, I love to hear that. Please put that in the comment section too, not just in the chat. That's so important. You have weapons now because you took action. That's you planting seeds. When you start planting seeds, your whole life starts to change. You no longer have low self-esteem. You no longer have depression problems. I'm not saying that's not real. I'm just saying that the way to change emotion, that negative emotion, that stagnant pool that just festers, is to get it moving, right? Motion changes emotion. Planting your seed is taking action. You'll see that, your brain, your subconscious sees that, the universe sees that, and it feeds it. You start feeding that seed, watering, food, sunlight, movement, right? Exercise, practice, and it grows, and that builds your confidence, and that builds your self-esteem, and that builds how you feel about yourself as a person, how you interact with the world, and you no longer sit there waiting. Who's gonna come save me? Oh, woe is me, this is so horrible. Perpetual victim, right? We're all stuck in this together, we're all in this together. Well, I don't wanna be in it with you, not you personally, but you know what I'm saying. I have no interest in that. I'm not waiting for someone to come save me. It's not gonna happen. I'm gonna do everything I can, plant all the seeds everywhere I can, in all the areas that I can, so that I'm not affected by what everybody else is affected by. And nothing personal, I just don't wanna be stuck in that fetid pond of nasty water that has nothing but maggots and mosquitoes growing on it. That's not pleasant, I've been there. Thank you, I appreciate you watching them so much. All right, I gotta get going, we gotta move on to the next thing. Get yourself some wood, sand it, oil it, start moving it, start striking, spinning, and then I'll give you more things you can do with the Joe.